Any longer? Octavio and Nicole, hi everybody. You made it. Is it raining outside? It's raining hard. Who here had a challenge with the rain? Who here is an LA native? So you guys are the only ones that can really complain because you know that's what we do here in LA. We complain when it rains.
Position lights.
You guys live? All right.
Check.
Well, welcome. My name is Corey Weiss, and I intend to make this panel as interactive as possible. So to start, I even got gifts for some of you. I'm with Ipsy. Does anyone know who Ipsy is? What Ipsy is? That's on the panel. What? What is Ipsy? A bag, yes. So you're a winner. You come up after the panel. We'll get that for you. So Ipsy is the world's largest beauty community. We're also the largest beauty subscription service, but we're about disruption, and we change the way that people learn and discover and purchase beauty. And today's panelists, two of them are going to be disruptive because they're going to come mid-panel and will arrive soon. But welcome. I want to make this, like I said, as conversational as possible. I have a quick survey for you. Who here has taken a shot of wheatgrass? Keep your hands up. Who here has taken a yoga class? Yes. Who here has tried CBD? We don't judge. All right, so basically you're all interested in wellness, so you're in the right place. We've assembled a very interesting panel for you today of business leaders, founders, to talk about this new guard of wellness and what wellness means. So before we start, everyone's familiar why we're here and who these panelists are, right, about wellness? I want to make sure that we're addressing topics that are important to you. So are there any topics that you guys definitely want to hear about or to be covered in the next 45 minutes or so? Anyone? No? Maybe you'll come up with one? Yes? Developing your audience and consumer marketing? Awesome, we will definitely get to that. And one more question for you guys. Who here is with a brand? So we've got some brands, awesome. How about an agency or a service-based business? Yes, and how about influencers? Any influencers in the room? And we have influencers, awesome. So now we know who you guys are and what your interests are, and if you have any questions throughout the panel, we don't have to wait till the end to have those pressing questions answered. So now I'll let the panelists start by introducing themselves, and we'll start with you, Kane.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Kane Sarhan. I'm the co-founder and chief creative officer of The Well. The Well is your complete ecosystem for wellness. We are launching our first private members club in New York City in exactly 40 days. We are a 18,000 square foot social club meets destination spa in big urban markets, and are currently working on location number 2 in New York, a location in Los Angeles, and a location abroad.
Hi, I'm Billy Hawkins. I lead a company named Arsenic. It's a social media company. In about a year, between Instagram and Snapchat, we're reaching 3 times as many people on our social media as MTV was on cable. We developed an expertise in social media that led us to work with a network of social media influencers that in aggregate reach over 200 million people. And we've leveraged that community and that base to launch a social media agency where we help other brands reach their consumers through social media, influencers, and campaigns.
And first off, thank you everyone for joining us. Corey was not wrong when he said this is going to be the best panel you've ever experienced in your entire life.
Woo! Fired up here, guys.
But my name's Michael Bumgarner. I am the founder of a skincare line called Kanuka. It is a clean beauty skincare line for the Canna-curious consumer. So we combine CBD with Manuka honey. And we were very, very fortunate to be the largest CBD beauty launch in history with Ulta Beauty in March. And I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here, all of you. And so we're going to start off. I mean, you heard a little bit about their backgrounds. Oh, and one caveat, I wasn't joking that 2 of our panelists are battling the 405 and will be here shortly, and we'll let them do a quick introduction when they get here. But it almost sounds a little bit like the start of a joke that you have, a wellness destination, a social media company, and a cannabis curious brand walk into a bar. But this is not a joke. I mean, these are three amazing brands on the forefront of their industries, first movers, disruptive, and I know a lot of you out there probably are curious of how you guys got your start to go into to be mavericks in areas where there weren't predecessors in your space. So maybe, Kane, if you want to start, and we'll work our way to kind of talk about what was the impetus or catalyst to create this kind of hybrid wellness club experience.
Totally. I think so my two co-founders and I all have had our own wellness journeys. And all three of us sort of come from very different backgrounds, also sort of sound like a joke. It's like a banker and a marketer and a designer walk into a bar. So we've all had like a shared wellness journey, right, where we've gone through some type of health thing in our life. For me, I had cancer at a really young age, ended up luckily catching it early and beating it, but through that process sort of realized that in my 20s I really fucked up my body, and through smoking a half pack of cigarettes a day and waking up with a sugar-free Red Bull and living a very hard, very fast-paced private equity life, I really never put my health at the center of what I was doing. My co-founders, on the other hand, are both, one of them's a yoga teacher, one of them's a nutritionist. They're wellness aficionados, and for me, after working in private equity, and I most recently helped launch and helped create a hotel brand called One Hotels, which actually just opened our first location in LA, which I'm really excited about. I sort of reconnect with my co-founders who are dear friends and realize that there is a huge market for wellness. Obviously, there's, from influencers to brands to tourism. It's one of the fastest growing industries in the world right now. It's worth over $4 trillion as a category, but there's a lot of noise. And consumers don't really know what to do. They hear about CBD, they hear about CBD, they hear about fad diets like keto, they hear that they should be vegan, they hear that they should be paleo, they're trying acupuncture facials, but they're doing it at places with unlicensed acupuncturists, right? There's just so much noise in wellness, and there really was never anyone who was a true vetter of that, and who could really say, listen, wellness isn't something that needs to be hard. It isn't something that needs to feel like another job. You can figure out how to do acupuncture and how to get a massage and how to see a functional medicine doctor and how to do a personal trainer and not have to go to 4 different places to do it. And more importantly, there needs to be a brand out there that you can know and trust that when they say this is something you should do or this is something that works, that it's backed by science, that it's backed by thousands of years of anecdotal research, that it really has like a quality to the product that's being offered. And so for us, we couldn't find that. We wanted it, so we decided to build it.
That's awesome. And this is Ashley Lewis with Fleur Marche, and we'll work our way. We're going to go to Billy and Michael, and we'll work our way back to you, Ashley. We're just kind of talking now about how you got, what was the catalyst or impetus to jump into, be mavericks in your spaces.
All right, first off, I'm taller than the mic. You can hear me though, right? All right, so that's number one. Number two, I think most people start what they do from a position of strength. They know a lot about wellness or cannabis, and they start a wellness or cannabis company. My company started because I knew absolutely nothing about the area. So at the time, I was an agent at CAA. It's kind of a traditional talent agency. And the 2 clients I was spending the most time with were Will Smith and J.J. Abrams. By the way, this is before Will Smith was on Instagram. And I was the right hand of the president of the company. He led both accounts. But day to day, I was there. I was doing all the work. and I wanted desperately to become more meaningful to each of these. These guys were like cornerstones of my career. It's the reason I had a house in the Hollywood Hills, are these two guys. And what I observed is they were super powerful, but they still didn't get everything they want. You would just assume that when Will wants to make a movie, he gets to make it. But Will and Sony and JJ and Paramount, they still had differences of opinion and so forth and so on. And we would often be kind of trying to solve those problems. And I had a very kind of rudimentary thesis. I was like, do you even need a studio? Like, is there some way that these people could reach their audience without a studio? I don't know, maybe they could post or download and people could pay and they could track their own audience and understand them and communicate with them. But I didn't even have an Instagram account. I technically had a Facebook account, but I didn't use it. And I thought, I got to learn about this whole social media thing. This was 2014. And so I did what I think all of us have done. Like, you get curious about something, you try to surround yourself with people better than you. And so I leveraged my CAA expense account, and I would invite people to my house in the hills and put together little dinner parties. And at each dinner party, I would try to curate like both a group that would be valuable for me to learn from. So there'd be like maybe a couple VCs, a couple founders, some talent that was using social media. But I was also mindful of like, make sure that there are guests that the other guests will want to meet and interact with. Because unfortunately, I'm not much of a lure, as you can tell already. All right. And so I started doing these dinners, and a few things came out of doing them. Number one, I started to learn. Like, it made sense. I was learning. I started helping with various brands or accounts on social media. And as I learned, all of them grew. I'd help someone grow from 1,000 to 1 million followers. And I'm enough of a nerd that I kind of got good at it, like on my phone, figuring that out. So that was one thing I observed. Another is that people wanted to come to these dinners. These weren't like incredible experiences. This wasn't like the Museum of Ice Cream. But people wanted to come and enjoy themselves and meet the other people, and they started asking, when's the next one? So they started to take on a life of their own. And then finally, and most importantly, I looked up at one of these. It had become like almost a cocktail party with Past Food, not just a dinner party. And I started doing like some math. I'm like, oh, she's here, she's got 1 million followers. He's here, he's got 2 million followers. And I was realizing there's 20 million worth of followers in my living room, and they've become my friends. And if I say, hey guys, take your phone out, take a picture of this, whatever, they would do it. Now, I was in movies, not TV, but 20 million people, like, think about that. That's not the Super Bowl. That's like a major television event. And at the time, like, no one was thinking about Instagram in the same way they think of TV. And so I thought, there's got to be something here. And I left CAA. I got a bunch of people to help me. The head of Disney invested, the head of Lionsgate invested, some senior folks from Live Nation. And we both launched a brand, which had success, and then started helping others with their agency. And that's kind of what led to it.
Awesome. Michael?
I'll try to keep this as short as possible because I get kind of long-winded. And I love the segue here because you knew nothing about social media. I'm in beauty of all industries. I have a farming background. 3 years ago, if someone would tell me I'll be on a panel talking about beauty, I'd be like, you are crazy. But I know a lot about beauty now. But what got me here is because of the farming background, because of my roots at the end of the day. What my mission is and what wakes me up other than my family is ultimately how do I increase demand for this commodity, industrial hemp, cannabis, in a way that we can positively affect our local farmers, our family farmers. It's illegal in a lot of areas. So I started with that thought process of what can I do to help this, because there's a lot of farms in rural America that are struggling. A lot of people don't realize bankruptcy, all-time high, farming communities. Suicide rate is up 27% in the last 3 years. Addiction, where the opioid epidemic is hitting the hardest, is rural America. And I truly believe that a lot of this is due because they don't have opportunity to successfully put food on their family's table. So that was kind of the precipice of like, how can I help solve this problem? Which led to me thinking, if I can create brands that utilize industrial hemp, that utilize cannabis to some degree, launch them successfully in a big way, and I'm talking, if I can scale a brand in 2 to 3 years nationally and then globally, demand for this commodity will increase, and ultimately I'll be able to help provide opportunities for these farmers and then throughout the vertical. So that's kind of what got me thinking of how to start how to jump into this industry. Now, how did I get into beauty? That's a whole nother topic, and it has to do with CBD is a powerful inflammatory. When applied topically, it decreases that inflammation. It just so happens, I'm very blessed, my wife happens to be in dermatology. So I was able to learn from her 99% of skin issues are a form of inflammation. So when you apply this ingredient, this natural ingredient from the earth to your skin topically, it will decrease that inflammation. Because I am from rural America, I'm from a small town in Ohio, it's very conservative.
What's the town?
It's Mechanicsburg, Ohio. Very, very small. I knew immediately launching a skincare line with just cannabis at that point in time would still be difficult. There would still be people out there a little stigmatized. It's like, you're trying to get me high. I know you are. You're saying you're not, but you're trying ultimately to get me high. So I went searching to find that complementary ingredient to not only make our product more effective, but also more approachable. And that's when I found Manuka honey. My cousin was working in a burn unit in Nashville, Tennessee, and she came up and she's like, hey, we started using Manuka honey to naturally heal burn wounds. And I had that light bulb moment that's like, people know honey's good. They might not know why honey's good, but they like honey. I combined the two. That's where Kanuka comes from, cannabis, Manuka honey. Just put those words together. And we ultimately have a very effective product that's approachable from a branding perspective. It's approachable from an ingredients perspective. And again, we've been very fortunate to be able to, to launch in Neiman Marcus and launch in some of these really key retailers, Ulta Beauty. But yeah, that's where it started from.
So let's get Yanni welcome.
Here we go.
Now we're complete. Now we'll kick it up another notch. But Ashley, if you want to talk a little bit about how you guys got started, then Yanni, you, and then I want to throw it back. I want to mix it up. I want to make a little controversy here to get you guys excited and engaged. So let's have you share a little bit about.
The traffic was horrible. So I co-founded Fleur Marché, which is an online CBD boutique, and our mission is really to rebrand cannabis as wellness. Full disclosure, Michael's brand is featured on our site. And one thing I will say, I don't think he does justice to himself in his introduction. Scaling a brand in 2 to 3 years is a feat in and of itself, and oftentimes the way people approach it is just by slapping words on a package and making it look pretty and trying to sell it. And I'm saying this for a reason. He has created a really best-in-class CBD brand that's very high quality and takes a lot of care in how he's formulating and what he's creating. So I feel like you should add that when you talk about it. In addition to having like an amazing world-saving mission, so he doesn't do himself justice. I say all that because our mission as an online CBD retailer was not to create our own product, but instead to really highlight the best of the best out there. You see the word CBD plastered on almost everything today, from mascara to jelly beans to Big Macs, or whatever Carl's Jr.'s equivalent is. And it's really hard to figure out what is legitimate and what you actually should be putting in your body. So we created an online platform to help you do just that, and have a very strict vetting process and take a lot of care as we think about who should be featured on that platform. The way we got started, my co-founder and I were colleagues and work wives at Goop, which can start a controversy in and of itself. But I ran the wellness business at Goop. I spent a lot of time from late 2016 thinking about CBD and cannabis and how it relates to your wellness routine. And in that time that I was researching the science behind it, the regulatory landscape, thinking about products and how to vet them, I realized that there was this huge audience of women to whom I was selling high-end, wonderful products, who were really invested in health, beauty, and wellness, and were really willing on any given day to experiment with holistic, progressive, weird, alternative healing modalities. And yet those same women who were so adventurous and so willing to take chances when it came to self-care, when you said the word cannabis to them, oftentimes almost physically recoiled and would say, oh no, I'm not a stoner, I don't want to get high, I had a pop brownie in college, that was enough for me. No thank you. And the more I learned about CBD, the more I started to use it myself, I just felt like there was a huge miss. There was a huge opportunity to really reframe the narrative around cannabis, and specifically CBD, which one, does not get you high, and two, has only so far been studied for very therapeutic benefits. And so we really saw this as a wellness tool, not as a recreational drug, again, which everyone has their own opinion. I'm very supportive of the recreational side of cannabis as well, but this was something different. And so we really set out to do what we had learned at Goop, which, say what you will about Goop, and it's sort of the progressive conversations or controversial conversations they have. Every product on that site is so highly vetted, is so carefully chosen, and it's just the standards at Goop for how you choose a product. It's just sort of like the cornerstone of everything. We took that same ethos and then started to apply it to this new ingredient that people were really misinformed about. So that's how we got going.
Great, thank you. And then Yanni?
Sure. Apologize again. We're 5 months in, so I'm still taking every meeting. Coming from a small distributor in Huntington Beach and fighting the 405. But thank you for having me. I'm Yanni. I founded Lemon Perfect. It's a flavorful and refreshing cold pressed lemon water. Distribution in Southern California and expanding now into the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, and Rocky Mountains over the next month. So super excited. I coached college basketball for 10 years, and a friend of mine wrote a book. My last year I was at Nevada, a friend of mine wrote a book on the ketogenic diet. In the back of the book were all these sample meal plans. Every day started by drinking freshly squeezed lemon water, which I did for about 3 or 4 days and then threw my hands up in the air. I couldn't do it again. At the same time, our players are guzzling vitamin water and Bai in the locker room. And, the lightning bulb moment goes off. Often I wish, now that I've been in this, I wish that moment didn't happen, right, sometimes. But I said, well, what happens if we combine the two, right? Can we take this powerful fruit that everyone knows, most people love, maybe not the taste, and combine it with a more mainstream American flavor profile and see what that fusion nets out as, and that's Lemon Perfect. And so it's the idea of combining a functional ingredient that doesn't have sugar and without distorting the nutritional integrity of the lemon by using cold pressure and high pressure processing, and then adding the flavor profile of mainstream America, which is vitamin water, which is Bai. We came up with this, what's proven to be the intersection of great taste and good for you. And I think what for me has become the most obsessive piece of this, especially lately, is the idea of doing it at a price point that's accessible for anyone, anytime, anywhere, right? We live in a country where the accessibility of wellness products is certainly not democratized. And so for me, the idea of being able to bring wellness to the world in a bottle is a wildly intoxicating proposition, and one that we're very excited about.
Cool. Thank you, Yanni. So one thing that it makes is common across all these panelists is they're all very humble, and it's actually I'm really proud to have them all here. And I have tons of questions to ask them. Now that you guys have a little bit of their background, and they're also very open to sharing. Do any of you have questions in regards to like your current business that maybe you can learn from these panelists, because it is a unique opportunity to have 5 people with these backgrounds assembled here, or I could keep asking questions. Come on, guys, it's interactive. It's digital Hollywood. Yes.
How do you apply to get your product on Goop? I'm not asking for yours because I don't have CBD.
On Goop, it depends what kind of product do you have?
It's we have lotions and capsules that mitigate skin cancer and in the skin, and also a focus on taste that brings back CBD.
Oh, very cool. I would suggest emailing. I'm sure on the site there's some email. I mean, even if you email. Oh, submissions@goop.com.
Are you with
All
Goop
right.
in the back? Okay. All right, submissions@goop.com.
Thank you.
There was a question in the back, far back, if you want to.
What was the biggest challenge with getting into Ulta Beauty, and what was that process like?
Great question. I don't know if it's necessarily just specific with Ulta. I think it really is with any of the larger retailers and retailers in general. I think it's very important to really articulate and then back up what you articulate, where your CBD comes from and how it's sourced. Is it a isolate? Is it full spectrum oil? Is it broad spectrum? These are all questions we have to think through. All can be very, very effective. Specifically for Ulta and for what we needed to do is we needed to make this as easy as a decision for the decision maker, before the buyer as possible. Isolate is what we use. Isolate used topically is very effective, but it also just made the decision when we're working with the general counsel of Ulta or another big time, general counsel for another major retailer to say, hey, we can verify that our product has 0% THC, and we can back that up by facts and facts and facts and facts. So I think with anything, whatever product line you do, I think the important thing is understanding what the person in front of you really needs to know and ask a lot of questions, and then figure out how you can answer them honestly to the best of your ability.
Great. You guys are heating up. It just took
in.
front row.
Hi, I have a brand called the Travel Food and Fitness Network. So it started off as a TV show, but we're branching off. I'm curious, how do you speak to distributors? How do you expand your brand? Mr. Lemon and Mr. Yanni.
Yanni.
Mr. Lemon Man, that's
Yeah.
a stick.
You know, they changed that card.
Yeah. No, thank you. For me, everything is product driven, right? If you walk into a room and feel really good about what you're selling or what you're presenting, it certainly amplifies, I think, the conversation. We started in 4 stores and used that data to then go to the next chain, which was 12, and then use that data to go to the next chain, which was 17. And then Whole Foods called, and so then we met with them, and so now we've got 2 regions of Whole Foods. So what you find is that you can get into a little bit of a snowball effect, right? You have to really focus on winning early. I think that for us was probably the biggest driver in our early story that we're building, is that we really committed to winning in the smallest footprint that we possibly could. So we have a saying that's a mile deep and an inch wide, right? And so if you can be hyper focused on winning early and building a story, then you can take that out and be confident as you start to try to scale. And so that's where we are right now. But I think you have to be really hyper focused, especially in retail, and especially in CPG, and especially in beverage, right? Building a direct to consumer story is obviously very different. We chose to start in retail, and then we'll launch our direct business at some point in the early fall. But we wanted to build a story. We wanted to be hyper aggressive with demo in store, getting as many bottles in hands as we could. Liquid to lips is what we call it. So whatever your product is, how do you put together a sampling program that is going to expose people to the brand, to the product, and then get the conversation started and let people do the talking for you.
I'm going to jump back to the program for a second. And we'll get back to your questions, because you said 2 things that I want you guys all to respond to. You said we used data and we used focus. Who here has been maybe a naysayer at some point regarding wellness? Like, oh, really? Do sound baths work? Does lemon really keep you healthy? Does CBD heal my back or my bad knee? I mean, probably people have questioned it. There's a lot of naysayers. It's okay, but I think you guys didn't allow naysayers not to allow you to go into your businesses. So how do you, the question goes out to all of you, how do you deal with naysayers? And some are more aggressive than others, particularly in the CBD space, where they're testing products to say, hey, there's really no CBD or very little CBD. So I think all of you at some point with your businesses were confronted with cynics that doubted you. How do you confront that? How do you conquer those naysayers?
I think for us, and for me, I think it's a couple things. So one, you have to believe in what you're selling, right? Like you have to buy what you're pushing, and you have to be able to walk into a room and know that just because someone doesn't believe in you to invest, or just because someone doesn't want to buy your product, doesn't mean that it's not quality, right? Or that it doesn't have potential, and almost be at some point like so hyped up on your own Kool-Aid that like you believe your own hype, right? Like we always talk about, like we had to like believe our own hype more than anyone else to get anywhere. And I mean, for the Well, we were walking around saying, you know, retail is dead, but we want to lease 18,000 square feet and spend $10 million to build a wellness club. And we talked to hundreds of investors that were like, no, like I'm not giving you my money. Like, are you kidding? And I mean, and we have been relatively successful in life and have built big brands and sold brands for billions of dollars, and you still would walk into meetings a lot of times with a bunch of old white straight dudes who would look at you and be like, what the hell is acupuncture? Or like, why would anyone buy this? Or like, what do you mean you're gonna do Reiki on someone and they're gonna pay you $250 for it? Like, no fucking way. And at first you would walk out of the meetings and you would have people say no and no, and you'd be like, oh, are we crazy? Oh, are we crazy? But the more you believe in it and sort of like just grit through it, and then when you get those yeses and you start hearing those yeses, like that is fuel, right? And you find your people, and you find people who believe in you and people who support you. And then like there's nothing better than having frickin' the Wall Street Journal tell the world that you raised $28 million and like sending it to every investor that said no. You know what I mean? So you know what I mean? So I think it's a little bit of like, it's tenacity, right? And it's just willing to like believe in what you do and know that you're building a good product. I think in today's world, like the day of like building an okay product that like you put some marketing around is over, right? Like consumers are too smart, they are too informed, they have way too high of standards. So like, I don't think you can build crap anymore. And so if you believe in what you're doing, and if you're building something good, like if you build it, they will come.
Great. Does anyone else want to share?
I'll say something quick, which is to say, I think this is against conventional wisdom. I think we generally as humans, and I think in America we're generally taught, avoid the naysayers, block them out, don't listen. And I think one of the most valuable lessons that I've learned is to listen in a very acute way to the naysayers, that it's valuable data. I think Yanni said something, data, which I think there's two parts of it. Everyone who's coming to get you, they help you, either you learn from them and you iterate your product or your service and you adapt and become better because of that, or they help you sharpen your ability to communicate why they're wrong. But instead of trying to block it out, I think embrace it, try to understand it, and then make the best use of it. I am not saying let naysayers stop you, far from, but it's valuable to hear it, and that's part of the data. And the second part, and Yanni hit this, at the end of the day, if you go into one store, right, no matter what you have, I don't care if you're selling lipstick, lemon water, whatever you're selling, and everyone in that store loves what you do, and there are numbers, and you can track that, and that's facts. That's power, and that data, I think, a friend of mine used to say, numbers don't lie. To the extent you can root what you have in numbers in some way, shape, or form, and those numbers are reliable, I think that's a form of power.
And I'll just say, surround yourself with great people that really believe in what you're doing. I mean, on the heels of that, I remember standing in the Arsenic House living room for the first time, and here comes Billy, this larger-than-life mythical figure, and then, I had just moved to LA, and I felt like we were going to build the most incredible brand when I walked out of there. And so, surround yourself with people that believe in you, that you can call, and that feel like you have a chance to tear down everything in your way. And it doesn't take a lot, right? Like my circle is maybe 8 or 10 or 12 people that I really feel like they believe that Lemon Perfect is powerfully scalable and will win, right? So surround yourself with those people. Cut through the noise. Don't listen to the noise, right? Obviously, invariably, if you build anything that wins, it won't be easy, and there will be a lot of noise on the way up, right? But if you just continue to fight and battle and believe in what you're doing and surround yourself with unbelievably great people like Billy, you will persevere.
questions or hands are flying. We'll work our way back. So you want to go ahead?
Thank you very much for coming and sharing this wonderful info. I have a brand I've been working on for the last 2 or 3 years, and I'm finally out of that stage where you actually know what you want to do. And I have the prototype and everything. And even what I just heard, it's enlightening. Do you guys suggest trying to raise money the traditional investors way first, or do you suggest doing what Mr. Hofnagel did first, which was more like a grassroots kind of mom and pop that grew into a bigger thing? What is your opinion?
If you can fund your business and own as much of it for as long as possible, do it. As much as you can do on your own, because the more data you have and the more proof of concept you have and traction you have, the more leverage you have when you want to raise money to scale. So build as much of your business as you can on your own. Some businesses you can do that, right? Like if you have those means and if there's a way to prove a concept on your own, I would always say build first and raise money when it's time to scale or take it to the next level.
Cool. Still working our way back right here. Oh, I'm sorry.
The
Go
only
ahead.
other thing
Ashley.
I would just add is even these days, venture-backed businesses is sort of like a dime a dozen, right? There's money everywhere, capital everywhere, and I think what people don't realize is that most businesses are not actually venture businesses. Venture capital, like software businesses thrive, that can grow 20x in a year. Oftentimes, and this is now my third startup, the first one I've been responsible for, but you see there's a certain tipping point at which the company shouldn't be growing or making the decisions it's making to grow, but has to because its investors have their own numbers to hit. And at that point, you start to see the wrong decisions being made and sacrifices and compromises, and it doesn't always turn out. I won't name the company I was at before Group, but I think it was on every list for the next billion-dollar company. It was this rocket ship. It was going to go huge places, and it hasn't. And I don't think it will. And you see that a lot of times. So just be really careful. Even once you're at the place where you can raise, be really careful about how you take money from.
100%.
All right. Yes. So how did you build it, identify audience, monetization, any other trade secrets you can share?
What's the formula of Lemon?
Great taste. That's the formula. For me, I didn't know what I was doing, so it was very important that I surrounded myself with people that did. So we actually went out before we launched, and we did raise what we call our seed round, or now call our seed round. And that was largely to surround myself with people that really knew sales and distribution, that knew supply chain operations, that knew how to build a brand. Because what I had wasn't good enough without that. We had packaging that, our first round of packaging, the bottles came off the line. We ran the MOQ, which I think was like 3,000 bottles, and the bottles came off the line. And I felt them in my hand. I'm like, oh shit, because I just didn't think it would work. And it was my first learning. What something looks like on a bottle or actually on a box is so different than what it looks like on a digital rendering or on a piece of paper, right? So that was my first hard learning. And also probably my first of now 2 kind of bet the company moments before we're really even anywhere yet. I called 40 investors and I said, we're gonna put a pin in this and rebrand. And so, not to get too off topic, but you have to follow your gut and you have to make hard decisions. I think there are, at least for me, or what people say is that there are gonna be 3 decisions that you have to make to kind of get to critical mass. And you got to go 3 for 3. So we just got out of number 2, which was hiring a COO who ultimately just didn't align with where my heart was, but was or is widely considered one of the really fantastic operators in all of CPG, Pepsi backgrounds. And what it came down to is just me following my heart and kind of the integrity of the mission that we've worked so hard to build. But yeah, surround yourself with great people that know what they're doing. And then have conviction for what you believe in. Shape the mission and then allow them to execute it.
Michael, you probably,
Yeah.
was there a follow-up
Yeah,
to
I
that?
would.
What did you say?
What if you don't have money to pay someone yet, you know?
So I guess, yeah, besides attending panels and asking questions, which is a good thing, thank you, what do you think, like, where did you find, I don't know, for lack of a better term, free resources or inspiration or mentorship that helps you formulate or shape your businesses?
Here.
I mean, in your instance, you were married to, your wife was a dermatologist, so you were lucky
That
that you
helps.
had
That
a
helps.
live-in help, for lack of a better term, but where?
Very well.
I got lucky. I'm gonna take it a step back. What was your name again? What was your name? What is it?
Dion, and
So-
what was your?
So I'm going to follow up, and then
Yeah.
it can transition, because I think they're both great questions. And yours particular resonates with me, because when I approach it as I want to create products using industrial hemp, there's literally thousands of different products that could have created. A lot of people don't know industrial hemp was the first billion-dollar crop in America in the 20s and 30s. So I had options. But I think what I tried to focus on, and I think it's perfect for this panel, talking about disruption, and beauty, after I started to understand CBD and really the benefits of CBD, both when you ingest it and topically, what can we disrupt? There's got to be a disruption going on. And I think each of us here are trying to disrupt an industry. And beauty, for the past 15 years, what I learned was the same ingredients used over and over and over again. They just called it something different. CBD is actually the first, to my understanding, is the first legitimately new ingredient that we can go to mainstream America and all over the world and say, hey, this is new, this is hot, and guess what, it works. And it's edgy. It's pretty cool too. You're in the cannabis space, people don't know about it, so you have that edginess about it too. So I think at first it's figuring out what the product, what you're passionate about, but then you got to do research. I think, a couple of the panelists, said, you got to make sure your assumption, there's data to back it up. Data is good. You don't want to make up data. You got to, trust data as well. So I think that's step number one. It's what you're passionate about, make sure it's effective, but also how are you going to be different? And it could be beauty, it could be a number of, beverage, a number of different options. And then in regards to like the startup world, the second question, and I forget your name, I apologize. It's like, I call it the hustle. Like when you're like bootstrapping, and trust me, I bootstrapped for years. And I just call it the hustle. You just have to figure out, how to leverage either friends, family, that extra umph when everyone's going to bed or when everyone's still asleep in the morning. There's a way. The way is not always written, in this clear path that we can leverage and say, this is the roadmap. If it was that easy, everyone would do it. That's kind of my thought process there. But there are resources out there. I know the Better Business Bureau, there's small business loans, there is opportunities, but they take time and they take effort to even go through that process. So I think the key thing is just know if the desire's there and you got the hustle, there's people around you that can help answer questions, and there's always a way. I know that's kind of vague, the answer, but it really is the hustle. It really is the startup life.
And just quickly, I think Dion, is that right? I think it unfortunately matters what your business is. I had the great good fortune of not even trying. I'm just living my life and having some dinner parties, and I look up and there's 20 million followers there, and then I think, I wonder if I should do something with this. That was free, and I had that luxury. The Well is going to be massive, all right? It's going to be the thing that's aspirational. Not everyone is going to be in, but they're going to want to be in if they're even cool enough to know. But you can't do that for free. That's a capital-intensive business. So when he identifies his market, he's got to have a hypothesis. He's got to back it up with some set of pitch in terms of, here's what I've done, here's what I've learned, here's what I've talked to. And he's got to persuade someone or he's dead in the water. Whereas I didn't have that. I was winning before I started. So for you, you got to figure out which of those categories are you in. Can you start to succeed, or do you need to persuade someone? And then if you figure out which path you're on, win on that path. Either become really fucking persuasive, or whatever you make or whatever service it is, make sure that people that do buy into it are having a positive experience.
And I'll just say, like, the biggest thing for me is from start out has been finding people who are exceptional at what I want to do and going to work with them and learn from them. Like, I have had consistently 3 entrepreneurs, from a woman I met as her waiter in 2010, who ended up being the founder of Coyote Ugly, and like let me follow her around for a year and a half as her assistant, from like getting her Starbucks lattes to teaching her how to use Twitter, to a VC I met on Craigslist and his wife, who's one of the founders of the biggest tech nonprofits in the world right now, and he runs a $100 million fund, who let me be their assistant and their chief of staff and taught me how to build websites and design spaces, to the #1 king of hotels and a billionaire who I worked under too. Like, I have had 3 distinct people where when I've wanted to do something and been like, I want to do that, I want to learn it, I'm going to go work my ass off for you, and I will do anything from get you a coffee to give you 80 hours a week. And when you find people like that who you can learn from, who are exceptional at what they do, and when you honestly put your time and effort and the hustle behind learning from them, like, that opens the door. Like, anyone who's looking to break into an industry, you want to do something you've never done before, go find the best people in the world at it and beg them and convince them to let you work for them and learn from them. And like, that to me has been the biggest barrier of entry of starting anything. I couldn't have done The Well if I didn't have Jackie, Nahal, and Barry. Like, through that experience with them, like, they've given me, one of them taught me how to hustle, one of them taught me how to convince people, one of them taught me how to design things. Like, that has been the biggest key to success by far.
The only thing I would just add, sorry, is, and it comes sort of on the heels of everything you guys have said, but figure out what you're really good at. So there's something in your business other than just your vision that you will do better than anyone else. And you have to add all of those people who do things better than you do. But for example, we get asked all the time who did the branding of our website. We did it. You know, we wireframed it and designed it ourselves because we had a clear vision for what we wanted to do, and that was totally free. And so even if you have, I mean, our first check was for $50,000, and it wasn't like that fairy tale story, like you got one check and then they all flow in. Like, that really didn't happen. And so, but we had a very clear plan for how we would build the site if that's all we ever got until it was up and running. And that included buying inventory, that included finding a web developer to help do very specific customization. So there's a lot of things that you have in your toolbox probably right now that are more valuable to helping you succeed than anything else money could buy you. And so I would just encourage you to like think hard about, where did you get this idea? Why do you have this idea? Why are you so passionate about it? And then that, if you're not already aware of it, like, that will lead you to the thing that you do better than anyone else could. And really, like, lean hard on that.
So I'm going to ask one more question, and then we'll bring it back to the audience. So, Kane, you said earlier that you wound up in a room with straight white old dudes. Were like, what the fuck is Reiki? I get it, but there's also been a shift. There's been a shift where people are more open to wellness. I got my mom taking CBD, sublingual now, and my dad's rubbing CBD, balm on his knees and whatever. So there's been a shift. So I'd like to hear from all of you. Maybe keep the answers as concise as you can. But one, what do you hold responsible for this shift that we're seeing, that people are open to going to sound baths? I mean, I was joking earlier that people question things like that, but people are open to wellness and people are open to trying new things, maybe where they were less open to it years ago. And then what trends do you see in the wellness space? And maybe we'll start with you, Ashley, and work our way across.
Great. I think people are more open because people are feeling not great. I think like we're seeing, cancer is like a thing. I guess it's a thing of our parent generation, depending on what generation you're in, but we're all living longer, having more diseases, not feeling as well. And then on top of that, we're hearing that the sugar lobby for years was telling us that fat was bad when in fact it was sugar. And there's sort of all these things that we thought were true that aren't true. And so everyone's just sort of much more in tune with how to live healthier, how to be healthy, and how to sort of like have a longer, more lasting life. I think that is where it comes from. My background in wellness now spans, God, like at least 6 years in various forms of it. I started in fitness, and when studio fitness was becoming the thing. And I just saw everyone all of a sudden flocking from the gym to these classes where people were telling them how to work out in the right way so that you're actually maintaining your muscles in your body and you're not sort of killing yourself just lifting weight. Sorry, this is not concise. So anyway, I think we're not feeling as well naturally. We can't trust our food sources. We can't sort of trust where things are coming from. And so we're having to take that responsibility on for ourselves. And then I do think the trends, whether it's CBD or organic food or sound baths, I think the trends really are sort of like, it's about self-care and like what that means to you and what that feels like and what you choose to do. And so it could take any number of forms. CBD is now, I think in 5 years, there'll be something we can't even conceive of. But again, it's sort of how am I physically and emotionally making myself feel better.
Yeah, I just think great brands have really led the revolution, disruptive brands, right? Whether it's Lululemon or even Whole Foods dating back now 30 years, right? I think you're starting to just see the fruits of those original wellness brands, better for you brands, start to penetrate just a greater distance, right? And then the more recent brands have just piggybacked on that. But I think brands have driven the wellness revolution, right? How you look and how you feel is so often dictated by what you're wearing or what you're holding or what you're eating or what you're drinking or where you're walking into. And that's all brand driven, right? And so my thesis is that if you build a great brand, the wellness component of it becomes more believable and more part of the integration into your daily lifestyle.
I mean, I think, so like I wasn't a wellness person 3 years ago, right? Like I smoked a half pack of cigarettes a day, I drank a sugar-free Red Bull for breakfast, like I said, and for me, I got on the wellness bandwagon because it worked, right? Like it helped me feel better, it helped me look better. Acupuncture is how I quit smoking. I started taking supplements. And got on a supplement protocol that my co-founder put me on that completely took away the fatigue I had every morning that made me want to drink a sugar-free Red Bull, right? I adjusted my diet, and not only did I see my skin change or my body change, but I also saw my mood change and my energy change, right? So I think wellness begets wellness. Once you start actually investing into it, like it works, so you want it. And I think the reason everyone's jumping on that train is because they're sick of killing themselves with opioids. They're sick of a food lobby that lies to them about food. They realize that we have more money and more access to quality, healthy living than we ever had before, but we're dying younger and we're unhealthier than we've ever been before. And the preventative or the responsive healthcare system that we built of, oh, you're sick, take a pill, oh, you're obese, get a surgery, oh, you had a heart attack, like, take this for the rest of your life, oh, you wake up with heartburn, just take a Nexium. Don't change your diet and stop eating hot dogs and bacon and fucking whatever you do every morning. Just take this pill and you'll be fine. And we're realizing that doesn't work. And if we do want to live longer, if we do want to be healthy, if we do want to have quality lives, we have to be preventative. It's every day. How do we stop ourselves from getting sick? How do we keep ourselves healthy and not just have a responsive life? I actually think one of the next big trends in wellness, again, going back to something that's been around for forever, but I think it's going to make a new turn, is I actually think essential oils are about to blow up. I think they are so incredibly powerful. You have one brand that completely owns the market right now, doTERRA, which is a total pyramid scheme marketing craziness on its own, but does $2 billion a year in essential oils. I think essential oils are going to see a huge renaissance. One, because I think they work. Two, because I think they're they're what people want, natural, real, plant-based. And 3, because I think there's a hole there. And I don't just say that because we're doing it, but you know.
All right, so caveat, I don't lead a wellness company, rather I lead a marketing company that helps other companies, including wellness companies, so you get that. So I think the observation I have is probably unpopular, but I think wellness matters. What I observe is that the version of wellness I grew up with, which was no pain, no gain. Like, you know, if it tastes good, it's probably not good for you, and if it's good for you, it probably doesn't taste good. I've observed people don't have a lot of patience for that. People want to like what it is that you're selling them. They want to enjoy it. It's not good enough, in my observation, that it be good for them. So that's my observation. And then maybe related to that is something that Yanni taught me. It's interesting. He kept talking about brand in his answer, and the brand that he's building is going to be a very powerful brand, but what he taught me as someone who's in marketing is that the foundation of brand is product. What he is building, it just tastes better, right? I generally thought of it like there's Coke and there's Pepsi, and who can have the better commercial, and that's how I've lived my life. But I don't know, I can't tell the difference in Coke and Pepsi. I think that him starting with product and creating a product that's winning and then makes a healthy lifestyle not just not a sacrifice, but a pleasure, I think is both how you build a brand and also I think the observation on wellness.
You guys nailed it. My take on wellness is a little, well, I agree with everything these guys said. I think about wellness, you can think about it so many different ways. I think about wellness like, I look at this audience, it is, what time is it, 4 o'clock on Wednesday, beautiful rainy day in LA, and we're sitting in here talking about wellness. Where I'm from, people can't do that. You know, rural America, and why I say that is we're so fortunate. We're all, like, I look at my life and beyond blessed. I look at everyone here and I'm thinking, we are very fortunate. We're the minority. So wellness to me and how I feel like I can help benefit this is ultimately, if you're struggling, if you are stressed about finances, if you're stressed about putting food on your family's table, you're not going to have wellness. That's not, you don't care if I'm going to eat this nice grilled piece of chicken or this filet mignon. You're like, where's my $1 Big Mac, because that's what I can afford. So what I'm trying to do, and my mission, and it truly drives every decision we make, it's how do we increase demand for me, it's industrial hemp, so we can put people in a position to actually have enough money in their pockets to think about wellness how we think about wellness. Because until you are able to be able to choose A or B, it's very difficult to make that educated decision. Because I guarantee if it was an even playing field and everyone was sitting on $1 million in the bank and you had the option between, you know, something that's horrible for you or a good product that's tastes just as well, but it's good for you, you're gonna pick the good product. So I think that's for me what drives me. It's like, let's try to put people in a better position to then they can actually have the conversation about the wellness. I think it'll decrease stress, etc. And then the future for wellness for me is, well, you know, if we can hit our goal and achieve what we're set out to achieve, which I'm gonna drive every day as hard as I can until we do it, hopefully there will be more people that have a higher level of income so that they can make smarter decisions. And I ultimately think that's what the cannabis space in general, whether you're talking industrial hemp or medical marijuana or recreational, as the demand increases, there's going to be more opportunities starting with the farmer, but through up the vertical, ultimately put more money in people's pockets so then they can actually be as fortunate as we are here to make those wise decisions about what wellness is for them.
Nailed it.
Great.
Following you guys.
5 for 5. Well, so we do have to wrap, but I want to take a few questions if there are any last burning questions. Yes.
So my question is, because it, like in the area of social media and wellness, it is new. And to me, I think of it almost as buying that like perfect bottle of wine, but you don't know wine, you just look at the label and look at which is expensive. So how are you guys going about educating, like why am I going to go to your brand? And I hear you as an assumption.
Yeah.
So differentiation.
Yeah, and so I'm a retailer and Michael's a brand, or I mean, we have a brand, but, so the reason we started as a retailer as opposed to a brand is because we saw that there were founders and brands out there really taking great care to create high-end, well thought out, well formulated product, and we wanted to provide somewhere for consumers to go where they knew that they would be safe. Right now, the only way, if you're in a CVS, if you're in sort of any retailer, you see CBD on the street, the only way to actually know if it's a good product is to email the brand and say, how do you make this product? Can I see your third-party testing? Can you assure me that there are no toxins or heavy metals from the hemp that was grown? Because one thing that's really important to know about CBD, which comes from industrial hemp, is that industrial hemp is a bioaccumulator. It will suck up all of the toxins in the soil around it. And oftentimes, we heard this, Michael and I were at an event last night, but oftentimes is used by farmers to clear the land. Once they've sort of like grown a crop, then they sort of plant hemp there to suck everything up, clear the land, and they can plant the next crop. So it can be very dangerous if you are not, consuming a high-quality product. What we do for our consumers is that any brand that makes it onto our site is very highly vetted, not only from a brand perspective, is it a great brand that we think our customers want to pick up and sample? Does it smell and feel and look good? That's sort of like the very first skim we do. The second one is we talk to the founders. Why are you doing this? How are you doing this? Like, where do you source your product? If we feel like they're sort of on the same mission we are and have the same ethos about making people feel better, that's the second skim. And then the third one is where we really dig in and require a very serious suite of tests. So we require for the hemp extract, first and foremost, heavy metals, pesticides, herbicides, residual solvents, microbiological contaminants. We require all that testing, and we make sure that it's either at zero or adheres to state laws. Then we also ask for testing on the finished product. Is the amount of CBD you say on the package is in that product? Does it test for that amount? And those are pretty onerous steps to go through. We assume that the average consumer doesn't have the time or interest to do that. And so what we're trying to do is provide that safe place. And the onus on us as a brand is to just educate the consumer. Come here and you will be safe. And this is why. And so we're very vocal about all the things that we do, but not everyone's doing that. And that's what scares me about this industry. I'm a huge believer in CBD, like massive, right? Like I pinched a nerve 2 days ago. I have tape and CBD on my neck. And like, that is what has me here today. But what scares me is that there's just people slapping CBD on packaging. You might go try one of those products and say, either this didn't work at all or I feel sick, this is crap, and then you're never going to try it again. And so we're really just trying to get the word out. And the more people who do that, the better, frankly. We don't mind people doing the exact same thing we're doing. We think it's better because CBD, I think, is here to stay. It's not a fad, it's a trend. I can always get them confused. It's not fleeting. I think this is a real thing, and I think that it's important that we all police high quality product. And that's why I'm so proud to have someone like Michael on our site.
Were there any, one last question in the back?
Yeah, I like what you said about trying to raise economic wealth, but I'm not so sure that can be done. So I'm wondering if any of you are donating a portion of your profits. I think the people that most need to be served are the people that are not middle class, upper middle class, that can afford all these services and create B Corps. I mean, what are you trying to address the large audience out there that really needs your products?
So is about democratizing the product?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think there definitely is a need of. I'm a proponent of all the above as of right now. So I think providing people to provide the opportunities to provide for themselves is a big win. But I also think as a brand or as a company to find those reputable organizations that you trust that they're getting the money in the right place. I think that's a win too.
So at the Well, it starts with our team members. So we have team members all up and down the chain. Our first club has 130 employees, everyone from a spa attendant who's responsible for cleaning the space all the way up to us as co-founders. So we think about how do we impact those people, right? How do we make sure they have the best health insurance in the world? How do we make sure that they are paid really well? How do we make sure that they can take wellness home to their families and educate them? Because I do think that it's not just about having the financial resources to make the decisions, but it's about having the education to know why you need to spend $2 on a quality piece of meat and not on a Big Mac, right? And what the difference is there and why that matters, because there are times when you can make the decision for what you buy a Big Mac meal at McDonald's, you can make a really healthy meal at home from the grocery store, and a lot of times there just isn't education there. We also donate a percentage of our profits to organizations, so we sponsor government research. We're already sponsoring government research. We sponsor food programs in New York City that get healthy food into urban markets. Once a month, we actually take our practitioners who are the best in the world at what they do, our yoga teachers, our acupuncturists, our physical therapists, our energy healers, and we pay them to go give their services in low-income communities. So actually take their services and give them to them. Oftentimes healers and practitioners are underpaid, so we pay them to do that so that they're compensated to do it. So we're very much a luxury product. Our clubs are exclusive, they're luxury. We want to build products in the future that are more attainable, but we also see a responsibility to be out there and to be educating and to be helping, from the people who work with us to the communities that we don't serve with our product but can obviously play a role in and actively help. So I totally agree with you, 100%.
The other, I'll say, we just figured this out. It's been really important to us since we started, especially because it's not lost on us that my co-founder and I are two white women who are dealing in cannabis when it's an insane statistic that it escapes me right now, but the number of minorities and people of color who are incarcerated for literally doing what we're doing is insane. So a lot of our counterparts in the industry are donating to very specific organizations to sort of help either sort of get those people back on their feet once they're out of prison, or sort of help get them out of prison. That's something that's really important to us. At the same time, what's happening in the southern part of the country right now is very personal to both of us for different reasons. Also something we want to contribute to, and so we really struggled for a while, like, how do we do this the right way without being condescending and really like sort of like showing due respect to the people who don't have the luxuries we do. And so what we've just figured out, and we're building the capability right now on the site, is essentially we're going to choose sort of 4 organizations that span these issues. For us, it's about women. Like, we created a female-focused brand, so it's about women, and so they're women-touching organizations. But we'll allow our customers with every purchase to decide who they contribute to, so that it doesn't feel heavy-handed at all, but that it also it's clear that it's meaningful. And that's how we figured was the best way to do it. But we understand the position we're in and how lucky we are. And I think figuring out, even though, we're a very small company, we're 6 months old, and a % of our revenue still probably isn't as meaningful as other companies. Hopefully we can start that from the beginning and one day really be meaningful contributors to all of those organizations.
And I'll just say in 10 seconds, because I know we're wrapping, yes, we donate money as well, but what I'm more proud of is that we serve as an organizational body to make sure that both our employees are actually giving their time and actually in a hands-on way contributing to some cause, and also catalyzing our community of influencers to be able to do the same. And I think that money alone doesn't solve some of the problems, and getting involved, I think, does. So I know you have to.
Awesome. Well, on that note, I want to first thank you guys, the audience, for attending today. I wish you well. I want to thank our panelists for your time and sharing your thoughts. Thank you guys very much.